We're on to the AFC West. Denver Broncos, their biggest needs here.
Denver Broncos' biggest needs, again, wide receiver 1 or 2, depending on what you think Cortland Sutton actually is. It doesn't really matter for the designation purposes, but I think they do need that secondary threat. They got a lot of young guys that they drafted that they quite like, but I don't know that you can rely on any of them. Vele, Franklin didn't show much year 1. Marvin Mims has become more of a kind of move around matchup player. I think they really need that secondary threat with Cortland Sutton there. Again, another team that I thought they're in pretty good shape. Like running back, sure. Tight end, maybe. Is Evan Engram stopping you drafting a tight end if you love one of them? If Colson Loveland is there, is Evan Engram stopping you draft him? No. But this is a pretty good roster.
No, I mean, I said Evan Engram might keep you from forcing a tight end, but if you
Right.
I think Evan Ingram's dependable receiver. If you also added a Colston Loveland to the mix, that's an intriguing option. Man, the more people talk about Teterow and McMillan falling, that feels like it could be the slam dunk for the Broncos picking him, beyond pick 15. I mean, any team picking McMillan beyond 15, whether it's the Bucs at 21, the Broncos at 20, that feels like a great fit there. I would love McMillan for the Broncos if he's that low. And then, pick your favorite running back. Scatterboo would be a nice fit here for the Broncos. Scatterboo and Estime, 1-2 punch in the backfield. How could you stop that? Ohio State guys, Omarion Hampton in the first. Would you hate that? Because the other pieces are in place, as you said, in this roster.
Yeah, that would be interesting.
We've seen that linked a little bit as far as Hampton going to the Cowboys at 12, Broncos at 20. That's come up a few different times here. But I think receiver's interesting because I think they were getting it done last year, but if they did have one more really good option there, I think that'd be huge. So I think McMillan, I think Luther Burden would be good there. They kind of have the speed guys as far as Mims and Franklin go. Franklin just has to catch the ball more consistently. So they kind of have the guys that get they have the guys that can get behind the defense. So I think that's less of a need for them than it is for some of the other teams that we've mentioned. So just more of a dependable receiver on the outside, I think would be great for Denver.
Yep.
Good. Kansas City Chiefs. Biggest need here for the Chiefs.
Left guard, particular.
Replace
the offensive line.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which one of us is glitching? Whose internet's this?
That was you.
Okay.
I don't think we glitched. I think I just talked over you. And I just said, replace Joe Thuney. So left guard for the Chiefs.
Yeah, pretty much. I'm still seeing slow internet. Yeah, Joe Thuney, obviously trade him away. You bring in Jalen Moore as left tackle. It's the kind of gamble that may or may not pay off. To me, they're a perfect team for one of those tackles / guards in the first round. All the guys that everyone's talking about as, are they a tackle? Are they a guard? Which way do we need to go? If they could get a Kelvin Banks in the first round, if he slipped that far, I think that would be amazing for them. But I think they need a starting guard because I don't know that you want to trust Kingsley Suamataia or Mike Caliendo there this year.
And I love what our friend Eric Edholm did when we stole his first round mock as a launch point on Monday. He had a trade up for Oregon defensive tackle Derek Harmon, which reminds of, yes, a defensive tackle option next to Chris Jones. And Harmon has been compared to Chris Jones quite a bit. I think interior pass rusher. Kansas City should be in play for Walter Nolan, Derek Harmon, any kind of interior pass rush presence next to Chris Jones, or just another body on the defensive line, right? I think Felix Anudike-Uzomah not looking like a great first-round pick a couple of years ago. George Karlaftis is looking like a good first-round pick, but could they go first-round edge again, especially if the right guy is there, late first-round pick? Absolutely. So I think Kansas City's defensive line depth overall, as well as that specific left guard need on the offensive line.
Yeah, they need to replace the depth. They quietly have kind of lost some significant defensive line depth pieces, Tershawn Wharton, guys like that. They could, I think, really stand to build that back. And if you need to spend a first round draft pick on it, it's not crazy, certainly. And then I think they need, I don't know if it's how acute a need it is, but the tight end wide receiver kind of room, right? Travis Kelce is definitely reaching the end at this point. I think we've now passed the point where we can say You know, he can turn it on when it matters. He still, you know, it just takes a while to get back into the season. Like Kelsey's declining at this point. And the wide receiver room, as much as it should be better than it was a year ago, we still don't really know what that looks like, right? They're bringing back Hollywood Brown after we didn't really see him last year. You've got Xavier Worthy going into the next year with what he's shown, the speed receiver. Rashee Rice coming back from the knee injury. They have a lot of bodies there, but there's a lot of unknown with that group. Like if again, I haven't seen them linked to this at all, but like if the right first round wide receiver was available at the bottom of the first round, it wouldn't be crazy to me for them to pounce on that guy.
Double up, back-to-back years, first round receiver.
Yeah.
I could see it. I mean, you mentioned tight end too. We don't know what ends up happening with Kelsey. You know, if Colston Loveland is there, we know it's what happens with the Chiefs all the time. Xavier Worthy, if any other team took Xavier Worthy in the first, you'd be like, oh, man, that's a little higher than I expected. Once you give him to the Chiefs, it's like, whoa, him and Mahomes. Imagine Colston Loveland with Mahomes, right? Oh, here's the next tight end who's going to have this great pass game feel with Pat Mahomes and all that. So I think the right pass catcher in the late first round, absolutely, you would think about it. So, yeah, I think those all make sense for the Chiefs. I'll just throw safety out there as well. Their depth has taken a little bit of hit. Justin Reed moving on, safety at least in the middle rounds. I think they'll go there with at least one of their picks.
All right, that's enough of that, Steve. Over 50% of the people listening to this are not subscribed right now. So click that button, and then we can get back to whatever it is Steve's telling you about.
Let's go. Los Angeles Chargers filled their tight end need with the International Pathway Program yesterday. Did they not? Chargers' biggest needs here.
Okay? I mean, that is one of my biggest two needs for them was tight end. Wide receiver is obviously still a need for them. Tight end, defensive line, cornerback, like some more depth pieces. But like they need another impact pass catcher, whether it's wide receiver or tight end.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, the Chargers are an interesting spot because I think pass catcher, edge, they have some specific needs where I think the first round value is there. There's a lot of different paths they can go, especially in the first, but I love the Luther Burden fit for them. I could see Matthew Golden being the guy as a receiver. I could see it being tight end and being Colston Loveland if he's there was it 22 for the Chargers. So I think pick your favorite pass catcher in the first round, or if the right edge rusher's there, right? The guy that bring back only 1 year of Khalil Mack, Joey Bosa moving on. I think edge rusher or receiver, especially in the first round, is where the Chargers end up going here.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. By the way, the IPP guy that they signed is one of the more interesting names from this year's class, Jordan Pataya. Like he's got legit high-end rugby credentials. A lot of these other guys, they were just about hanging around the bottom of like a club team. He's a serious like Australian international who was a high-end player. 6'3", 225 was also his listed weight as a rugby player, where he had to run around for 80 minutes at a time. Apparently, that's basically what he was at the pro day as well. I would view tight end as more of a nominal designation. Like when I spoke to the IPP guys last, they didn't know what position Pataya was going to play. They weren't sure if he was going to be a running back, a wide receiver, a tight end. This feels like we have to call him something because you can't just write athlete on the thing. But they basically grabbed an athlete, I believe. Now, that being said, 6'3", 225 is broadly speaking what Brock Bowers is in size. So it's not like, you can carve a receiving tight end role at that size, but I would basically label him right now as they've just signed an athlete.
Big slot could be the big slot.
Yeah.
I would also look. It's interesting to me that the Chargers might have that pass catcher need, and that's what they're labeling him. We'll see what ends up happening there. They also could use the big body defensive tackle. I think they at least spend one of their picks on the Deion Walker, Alfred Collins, Tyleik Williams. I think would be a really nice fit for the Chargers. I feel like 10 straight years of getting them a run stopping nose tackle. They had Poona Ford for a bit, but getting another good run stopper up front has felt like a 10-year issue, maybe 15 now for the Chargers.
What about you keep obviously gravitating towards these big bodies, right? What about a CJ
Small.
West, a guy, because they lost Poona Ford, right? Who's this
Yeah.
undersized nose tackle who's a really impactful player. What about grabbing CJ West, who's not, 330, 340, but is a really, really good run defender?
Yeah. Thank you for moving beyond the same names. That's a beautiful addition there. Indiana CJ West. Chargers.
And,
Good Chargers option.
getting you to stop just profiling people. Big body equals, positivity. Just, asking you to look beyond your own class of people.
I'm like the biggest advocate for shorts, for smaller people. We're almost. I mean, we've kept pace, Sam. We've done a great job. Given the 5-minute intro, the massive Joe Milton news that we needed to cover, we have done an outstanding job. It's a little over 2 hours, but this is a huge win for us heading into our final team here.
Huge win. It's
the Las Vegas Raiders. Needs for Walt's lowly Raiders, as he calls them.
Walt's lowly Raiders. I still think they're kind of like the Cardinals. They could use defense everywhere, like they've got a couple of playmakers there, but there's not a level of that defense where you couldn't add somebody and him walk in immediately as a starter and a useful, upgrade. Like you could argue that edge rusher is the least needy. Like you've got Max Crosby, obviously their best player. They brought back Malcolm Kuntz. You've got Tyree Wilson, who is at least taking steps in the right direction. So I could buy the argument that they don't need an edge rusher, but like you could have a defensive tackle alongside Christian Wilkins. You could have a linebacker. You could have a corner. You could have a safety, all of whom could immediately walk into the starting lineup.
Yeah. So I think if we're just talking specific positions on the defense, I think corner specifically, Jack Jones, we'll see how he fits in the new system, and Eric Stokes are the starters. I think they need to add a starting caliber corner for sure. Probably not with the top pick. So second round Raiders, I think did we give them Trey Amos? We gave them one of those second wave of corners. I think all those guys are in play there for the Raiders in the second round. I'm fascinated by a Mason Graham addition there. I know they already have Christian Wilkins, but I mean, I love coming out of the draft and saying, look at this position group. And if you came out of the draft and you looked at the Raiders with one more impact player on the defensive line that has Max Crosby, has Christian Wilkins, Kuntz, some of the players you mentioned, Tyree Wilson, who's coming on a little bit, moving around the defensive line, whether it's a big nose tackle type, whether it's a Mason Graham penetrating type, or whether it's just one of those edges. Maybe Nick Scourton falls in the second round and now you just, rolling 3 and 4 deep on the edge. I think any sort of defensive playmaker for the Raiders makes a lot of sense here. But I think acute need, we're talking they need a starting cornerback, maybe even 2 for this year and beyond.
I would love to see an extra pass catcher added, kind of in the same bucket as the Chargers. I don't really care like where it fits, and I like the difference being like for them, Brock Bowers is their number 1 receiver, right? And I that's fine. I don't think it means you necessarily need that number 1 wide receiver, but Bowers, Jacoby Myers, that's a really nice duo. I think I would like to see one more body somewhere, right? One more useful contributor as a receiver, whether it's outside, whether it's another slot guy, whatever that is. I just want one more weapon that I'm comfortable with. Running back is still a need, I think. I actually like Sincere McCormick. I think he's a good player. They brought in Raheem Mostert. But if you like, they've been linked to Ashton Genty a lot at the top of the draft, which is probably as high as I think you can possibly argue that he should go based off, the teams that are involved. I wouldn't hate it. I would get it. I wouldn't hate it. I don't think I would do it given the needs that they have, but like Ashton Genty, I think would turbocharge that offense.
Because we're at the end, I'll just open up this conversation really quick here, but the conversation they're having in the building, they could easily talk themselves into Genty, because every time you're talking about, do we pick this player in the first round? You're thinking about where's the rest of the depth at the position. You could talk yourself into, well, there's plenty of receiver depth. There's also plenty of running back depth. But then you could say, okay, when has Pete Carroll been successful? It's when he's got his bell cow running back. What was the issue with Geno Smith last year? They couldn't pass protect. They couldn't run the ball effectively. We're going to do that with Ashton Genty. Right or wrong, I could just see the conversation steering there. Let's just get Genty now. I know Scadaboo's available later. I know the Ohio State guys are available later. I know that there's depth there, but we can get him now. But there's also depth at receiver. There's also ways to fill these other spots later. I could see them going that route with Genty.
Yeah, and I think as much as we always talk about, well, what does the depth look like the next round? What is, where are the players we can get in the second, third at these positions? I do think at basically every position, certainly within NFL buildings, the math changes when you're talking about a blue, quote unquote, right? A guy that is in the blue chip, the difference, the special level. Genty should be in that group for every NFL team, I think. Like, people are down on this draft generally because they don't think there's a lot of blue chip players. Abdul Carter is one. Travis Hunter is one. These are the players. Like, then you're debating, is Mason Graham in that blue chip? I think Genty's in that. He's in that Mason Graham tier where we're like, if he isn't, it's only because it's a running back, right? But he is theoretically a blue chip, different type of player. Like, I think the gap between Genty and Hampton, who's most people's number 2 consensus running back 2, is larger than the gap between Hampton and running back 3, whoever you want to make that. So you can definitely make the argument, if you're the Raiders, that like, don't overthink it. Just take the blue chip guy and we'll figure out the rest later on.
The blue chip discussion is real. And I think in a lot of buildings, it might even trump the positional value or the financial aspect of it. Really quick, Mohall in the chat says, hey, Tom Brady, the GM, won't let that happen. I don't think Brady's analytically inclined there. I think, honestly, that conversation is going to be like, hey, I remember, guys, when I got Corey Dillon in 2004, that was great for me. I loved how you hear him on the broadcast. I love how much the run game helps the quarterback. He, like Peyton Manning does. They're not the analyst nerd types. They're like, I like the run game, running. It's just another position. They're not playing that analytics game.
I actually think those guys, like if Tom Brady or Peyton Manning calling the shots, makes it more likely that happens. I think they're absolutely more likely to say the running back, an elite blue chip running back, that sets up play action. Like, it's all the old caveman conversations you've heard for 30 years, of which there is some validity. It's not complete fabrication. Like, there's something, there's kernels of truth to that. But I think those guys are, particularly those two, Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, are like full red pilled on that stuff. Like, they believe all of that.
We told, Peyton has his own, we drafted Edgerrin James at 4 or 5, whatever it worked for us when we got Edgerrin. It worked for us when we got Corey Dillon. They're gonna, they would tell those first person stories and say, that's what Gino needs is Ashton Genty.
Thanks for watching all the way to the end of our video.
For more great content, click here to subscribe and here to watch another video. We'll see you again soon.